Designer, patio villa, courtyard villa, premier, veranda, cottage. What does it mean? Is a designer home the fanciest option you can buy here? Do all villa homes have a fenced-in yard for privacy or for my pets? We are going to talk about the home series, what they mean, and if there are only certain homes that show up in certain areas of the Villages, Florida. Hey y'all, my name is Kaitlyn. I'm a realtor with LPT Realty, and this is Visit the Villages, Florida. Now guys, I am at the Street of Dreams here in the village of Wellpoint. We're going to talk about it in just a little bit, so I'm just going to jump on into the video because we have a ton to talk about. When you start your home search, you may start looking at sites like Zillow or even like the Villages website and see words like designer model and think, this must have been a show home, one that is highly upgraded, but that's not always the case. There are different classifications of homes that are built here, and each one tells you a little bit about the floor plan or location or what the exterior looks like. So let's get into it. I'm just going to go ahead and go down the line. There's no favoritism here. So as we're going into this, know that some models can be stretched and modified with the additions of like a golf cart garage or taking a garage from like a 1.5 car to like a full 2 or anything else along those lines. So what it means when I say that they stretch a home is kind of like when you expand a picture, you just pull on the corners of it. They expand the exterior walls, which makes the interior rooms larger. So then they don't typically all fall into strict parameters of home sizes. And then people, of course, can enclose the lanai after the fact, which would give them more square footage than just some of their base models. Now that we have that settled, let's start with patio villas. So patio villas are typically like the entry-level models that you can get into. These can be a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom, and they're all built with frame construction, meaning they will have vinyl siding on the exterior. I believe they have discontinued the 1-bedroom models, but they do still exist like out in the wild. These houses can start around like 900 square feet and go up to about 1,300-ish square feet. Patio villas are always in their own little like section of a village, so they're on like a 2, 3, maybe like 4 street loop. Most of the patio villas have a 1 car plus a golf cart garage, and in some models there are the full 2-car garages. These homes are the most affordable, and they can be basically in any village from north all the way down to the southern sides. Now, depending on how large the village is, there may be multiple loops of patio villas within one village. The next step up is the cottage homes. Now, these can be a little bit confusing at times because there are regular cottage homes and also cottage villas. I don't really think cottage villas are all that common though, so kind of breezing over this. The difference between a cottage home and a cottage villa is that the villas will have a fenced-in backyard. That's it. To make it even more confusing, sometimes the cottage homes are often called a ranch home. So with those little exceptions, a cottage starts off a little bit larger than the average patio villa with about like 1,200 square feet, and they can go up to, I think it's like 15-ish hundred square feet. These homes are also frame built, and they'll have vinyl siding. I do want to say that most of their floor plans are going to be 3-bedroom, but there could be a handful that are 2 or any of like the archived models that I'm forgetting about. Now we will move on up again to the next category, which is a courtyard villa. So the very basic standard of a courtyard villa is that the backyard is going to be fenced. There are courtyard villas throughout all of the villages, north, south area, all of that. And they have gone through a little bit of like a glow up in the more recent years. When we are looking at courtyard villas in the sections that's, let's just say, that are like 2014 and earlier, they had those like angled driveways, and they could vary between both frame and concrete homes. The angled driveways made things a little bit difficult at times because there isn't a lot of wiggle room to have a car in the driveway and move a second vehicle or golf cart out of the garage. Some courtyard villa loops were all frame, and some courtyard villa loops were all concrete. It just depended on what section you purchased in. Now, in the more recent years, I'm going to say like basically like Brownwood and below, the developer has adjusted the models to now sit square to the street, so the driveways are not angled anymore. The Courtyard Villas are also now all concrete for the exterior. This model type is really popular for pet owners because that backyard is fully fenced and you can still get something really nice to look at, like golf courses, ponds, etc., because those lots will have what's called a view fence. So instead of the standard like 6-foot fence or wall, you will have the shorter like 3-foot iron fence to be able to look out of. Moving on up, we have the verandas, and they are the bigger home models that also allow fences. Verandas are a newer concept as well, only been built in the areas that are like in the south, like again, Brownwood and below. Verandas can start at about 1,500 square feet and go up to about 2,300-ish. But I want to say like a bulk of their models are going to be like 2,000 square feet, and they are all concrete construction on the exterior as well. Most of them also feature the 2-car plus a golf cart garage. Some just have one, but again, not all that common. These models can have a lot of different backyard options. Some veranda sites are built on the water or golf courses, so you'll have a view fence like we just talked about, which if you do have a dog that could hop fences, like maybe like a pointer or anything else along those lines, you may want to opt for those interior lots that have that big wall or a full 6-foot fence put up. You don't get the feeling of the kissing lanais here because at the very least, there is a wall or fence to block you from seeing your neighbors. Now, there's something that is brand spanking new that was just released in the village of Wellpoint called a garden villa. The closest relative of home series to that garden villa would probably be the Courtyard Villa, because the garden villas also offer a fenced-in backyard. They are all concrete construction, and they exist in their own little loops as well. Where they differ, of course, is going to be the layouts and then some of their like base upgrades. Garden villas have some nice trim work around the doors and windows. Some will have like the open shelving options in the kitchen, and then the lanais are not screened in. This is a totally new concept, and honestly, I only went into a few of them when I had a friend previewing them, so I don't know if the series is going to be replicated again or if they're going to shift the vision at all with it. So be like everybody else, just stay tuned. So before we get into the next segment, I want to point out that the patio villa, courtyard villa, cottage villa, garden villa, and veranda homes are all unique with their lot lines. If a house has a fence, the way that the homes are typically constructed is that one side of the house acts as the permanent barrier. So your neighbor's exterior will technically be on like your backyard line. Just because their house is acting as that fencing barrier, it does not mean that you have ownership rights to it. If that neighbor wants to put gutters on their house or has like a repair issue that they need to access from your side, you need to be accommodating to go ahead and let that happen. With that being said though, that neighbor has zero rights to, let's say, like plant a tree on that area of the yard, even though their house technically sits there. Does this make any sense? This is not a zero lot line like we see in cities or condos, because there is yard space to gap the houses, but that house is acting as a fencing wall. Patio villas, they're in this category, but they're a little bit different because they don't have backyard fencing. But what they do have is they have like a side area of the house that's like a concrete slab and landscaping that will stretch out to the neighbor's house. Same thing applies. You maintain the concrete and the landscaping area around it, and then the neighbor will maintain their siding and all portions of the house. I feel like I explained that really badly, but we'll see. Now the designer category. This is a heavy hitter. There's a ton to go into the series, so buckle up. The name designer does not mean that they are the highest class of homes available. It simply means that if you were to build a home from the ground up, you have the option of like a design or premier. So with this, you get to design your home. That's where the name came from. There are spec designer homes, which means that the developer makes all the decisions and puts it up for sale when the house is ready to close. But honestly, most of the houses that you see when they're getting built, like in this new area, like Wellpoint, Edenfield, all of that, Ocala, is what we call a pre-sold. And that means that the lot and the house have already been spoken for when they're being constructed. Most of the time, the spec houses will go up after like the majority of the lots have already been claimed and the developer is ready to just kind of get that whole section built out, because they don't want the streets to have continuing construction, and they just want it all kind of closed out at just about the same time. So you will see a ton of variety in home models here in this designer series, because they will start around like the mid 1,400 square feet in wood frame, and they'll go all the way up to about 2,500 square feet with a concrete exterior. Designer homes can be built pretty much wherever, which is why I think that they are like one of the largest categories. They are on interior lots, perimeter lots, water, golf, pond, preserve, anything. The safe bet is when you are just driving through like any neighborhood of the villages, I'd say maybe like 65, maybe like 70% of the average village is a designer home. These houses will be 3 or 4 bedrooms with at least 2 bathrooms. Some of those models will have 3. You can also find that most will have the standard 2-car garage, and some will have the 2-car plus a golf cart garage. Now, if you're ready for me to start confusing you, the designer series also has the most names of all their houses, because up until recently, and by recently I mean like 6 months at least, the villages would change the name of each model depending on if it was a frame built home or concrete, even if the footprint and the interior floor plan was the exact same. An example off the top of my head is my house, which it's called a tall pine if it's in frame, and then it's a whippoorwill if it's in concrete. Now, thankfully, they have condensed their names. So now what they're doing is they will say it's a tall pine F for frame or tall pine C for concrete. Thank God, it is now super helpful for us agents, but we still have to know all the lingo of the previous ones. With that, the names have also changed when they moved into different sections. One example of that is going to be like the iris. So an iris is an archived block model. It's now called a lilac in frame and a kingfisher in concrete. The lantana is known in the older sections, and it's now a raven in the new ones. Same house, different name. We are not trying to gaslight you, I promise. Now, if we want to make things even a little bit more spicy, did you know that most of the models in the Veranda series are the same as the designer houses, and they also have a new name because we added fencing? It gets confusing, and it gets worse and worse and worse the more you go on. We'll get there. So for an example of that, we have the Isabella Veranda, which is a songbird in the new concrete designer models, which is also an old zinnia model that is now archived. But wait, it is now also called a fast break in Middleton, because obviously they had to change the name one more time just to keep us all on our toes. So if you were on the phone with me and you hear me flipping through laminated pages in a binder, you're probably right, and it's because I am making sure that I'm looking at all the same names of models just so we know exactly where you're talking about, because it is chaos. That's a lot, but we're so close. We're not done yet because I told you there's so much to go over, but we're almost done, I promise. The last category that I want us to talk about is going to be the premier models. These, like designers, can be customized if you wanted to build them from the ground up. In fact, designer and premier, again, are the only 2 that you can customize when you're building. Most of these models will be available for you to walk through on the Street of Dreams, which is where I am, which is basically where the developer sets aside like 100 lots to build variations of designer and premium houses, some with pools, some with expansive upgrades, some with home stretches, so you can walk through the models before you decide what you want to customize on your build. There are literally hundreds of different options to choose from that are represented here in the Street of Dreams, from selections like floor and backsplash tile, roof colors, fixtures, all the way up to like a pool consultation if you decide to build with a pool. Okay, back to just talking about Premier Homes. There are a few specific layouts that are only available to build in the Premier category, although some are also found in the Designer series. Like a Premier Egret is also a Designer Kingbird, and a Designer Ibis is, or I'm sorry, a Premier Ibis is a Designer Raven, things like that. Where they differ is going to be your finishing touches, ceiling heights, door heights, things like that. In standard houses, I want to say the door frames are just under 7 feet, like 6'8", 6'10", somewhere around there. But in the Premier homes, those door entryways are going to be 8 feet. So you get much more of that like regal feeling throughout the house. Premier houses also start around that 19-ish hundred square feet and can go all the way up to 3,700 square feet. It is super rare to see a house that large, but these houses are spectacular, and really they're just incredible to look at. Just based off of the footprint for most of these Premier houses, they can't always be built on like a standard or even slightly expanded lot. So you will see some of these areas created like the Enclave in Dabney, or selections of like the Village of Bridgeport, which have some incredible Premier homes. If you have the chance to drive through, you won't miss out. I know that this is so much information coming at you, and it's hard to kind of give you like a crash course of all the houses in this Villages area. One thing that I do want you to remember though, if this is going to be important to you, if a house comes with a fence, it will always have a fence. You cannot remove it. Same goes if a house does not have a fence when you buy it. You cannot add one later. What I have seen a few people do is if they have a designer home and they want more privacy on their lot, or if maybe they have like an interior lot that backs to like a kissing lanai or maybe like a big road, is most of the time they will go ahead and plant large shrubs either just inside the property line or around like their lanai and birdcage area in order to give it more of the illusion of privacy. Another thing people do is if they put in a pool, they will build a taller wall to like anchor their bird cage to. So you kind of create another barrier so people can't see into your pool cage. And guys, remember, all modifications that you do to the exterior of your home need to go through the architectural review board with designs and sketches of your plans to make sure that it adds up and lines up with the deed restrictions for your neighborhood, your village, your section. Okay, I'm done. Oh, wait, one thing I do want to remind people is that I am a MLS realtor. So that means that I can only sell resale properties here in the Villages, Florida that are processed through the MLS, sites like Zillow, Realtor.com, things like that. I cannot help you buy new construction if that's the route that you want to go to. But we can always talk about different floor plans, or if you really just kind of need like a sounding board / somebody to run through different plans with you, if that's what you need. But guys, I'm out of here. Thanks for sticking with me. I did not mean for it to be this long. I'm actually going to turn the camera because we have a beautiful sunset here on the Street of Dreams. We're going to look at it right now. It's also because it's going to storm. Naturally, it's Florida. But ready? Hold on. Look. Can you see that? Ah! Okay, bye. Be kind to one another.